Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool with you at PTV World, and today we're going to be taking a look at the very important announcement regarding the finalization of delimitations of constituencies. Of course, there has been a lot of discussion around when elections are going to happen, and not just now, way before this as well. And there seem to be some sort of reports coming forward with regards to delay in elections, and a lot of rumors and people talking about whether or not we're going to be seeing elections actually happen on February 8th. That was announced earlier. But it seems that with the announcement of the finalization of delimitations of constituencies, the ECP has put an end to those rumors, also previously claiming that any such information is baseless, and that they're going to be taking to task anybody who is spreading false news, including also taking notice of any news channels and speaking to PEMRA with regards to whatever is being broadcasted as well. So this is going to be an important discussion of whether or not now there are any chances of any particular delay in the elections, and what does it mean when we talk about the finalization of these constituencies, given the fact that we saw over more than 1,400 representations against the delimitations previously, many of them coming in from Punjab alone. And of course, with a lot of talk with regards to what exactly was the procedure in terms of finalization of these delimitations, and whether or not the right legal action was taken, whether or not the constitution was upheld, and whether the rules of the Election Commission of Pakistan were given more importance than the legal provisions. So we're going to be taking a look at all of this, and then also the impact that the new delimitations in different provinces have on the various political parties and their leaders. We're going to be contesting elections from the different constituencies, and what it means for major provinces in terms of what we are going to be witnessing on election day. At the same time, of course, what is the necessary arrangement forward with regards to the conduct of elections and the kind of transparency that one can hope for from elections, whether the preparation plan so far is there or not. It seems that a lot of this has also been discussed with the different political parties and the ECP, something that's also going to come up very soon. So we're going to be taking a look at what we know for now, and also with regards to the kind of conditions and variables that have been pointed by at least two petitions that were filed within the ECP prior to the announcement of these delimitations, particularly from Balochistan, citing security concerns and weather concerns as some of the reasons as to why elections should be delayed there. And of course, these are also genuine concerns in terms of how it's going to impact voters coming in and voting on election day. So what is going to be the ultimate measure or preparation that is going to be put in place to make sure that any impact that such conditions have on election day is minimized. So today we're going to be taking a look at all of this and what it means in the coming days and months. And of course, for this, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farrukh K.Pitafi and Raja Faisal. We've also been joined online by Dr. Niaz, Murtaza, who's a political analyst, and Mr. Salahudin Safdar, who's spokesperson FAFEN, who's going to be joining us very soon. Let me start with you, Dr. Niaz. Welcome to the debate. Today, of course, we're going to be taking a look at the ECP's announcement of delimitations. But first, let's also talk about how exactly have we reached this point, particularly with regards to the kind of aspects that are being discussed in terms of what procedures and rules were followed, whether or not the legal provisions given were actually upheld. Do you think that what we've seen reportedly coming in terms of how exactly we've come to this conclusion, that this follows in true spirit the law as was required?
Well, yeah, I think it's a welcome step that, the Election Commission has, announced the final delimitation of constituencies. And it's an important step towards, the holding of elections. If the delimitation had not been completed, then of course, elections could not have been held. So it was a necessary condition. But is it a sufficient condition? That remains to be seen, because like you were mentioning, there are a lot of people who are raising concerns that elections may get delayed, and a lot of those concerns are based on the fact these assumptions, to whatever extent they are right, that there's a push to delay elections because the powers that be are still not sure, what kind of results will accrue, and what will be the position of PTI, despite all the battering that it has taken. But if elections were to be delayed on that basis in reality, then delays in delimitation would have been a good excuse, pretext to delay elections. So that pretext, that easy option is now gone, and it would now be interesting to see on what other basis elections could be delayed. So even if delimitation was not the real reason, because it's one of the only few reasons because of which elections can be delayed, it's a good step forward, and it makes elections all that more certain. The other reasons that are being given, that like weather in the north, etc. Let's remember that the 2008 elections were also held on February 18th, so which is just 10 days away from the date given for these elections. So if they could be held in 2008, why can't they be held now? The other reason is insecurity. Insecurity was much worse in 2008. That was the peak of the terrorist attacks by TTP and so on. So really, I don't see any serious grounds, any valid grounds for delaying elections further. It's unfortunate that the constitutional provisions for them to be held in 90 days was not followed, and we've seen a delay of 3 months on the national elections and over a year on the provincial elections. So it's all the more important. I think there's also a lot of pressure from outside, and there is the need to go back into a longer IMF program, and if elections do get delayed,
Yeah.
that might be put into jeopardy, because IMF may not be willing to go for that program without an elected government in place. So whatever little economic stability we are achieving, that might get jeopardized. So let's hope that elections are held on time.
Right, and Dr. Niaz, you talk about hoping that elections are held on time, and unfortunately, given the kind of history we have seen before, that might be a genuine way of looking at things. But are we still talking about how things might actually happen on time, how we are hoping for things happening on time? There is still some aspect that remains in terms of being assured that elections will be held on 8th February. What, in your opinion, can possibly delay the elections?
Well, as I said, the main reason that is being, expounded by different people is, in terms of, how PTI is going to perform. So whether, state elements are now certain or not that, PTI will not be able to put a strong show, that's difficult to say. But, if you ask my opinion, that, then I would say that the chances that elections will be held are high. I
Okay.
wouldn't say that chances of delays are very high at this stage, because of the external pressures, and because one of the main reasons on the basis of which elections could be delayed is now gone, with the final limitations being announced. So I would say that from my point of view, the chances of elections being held on time, not on time, even these are delayed, but on February 8, are quite high at this stage.
All right. Farrukh, there was a lot of concern that was raised prior to the finalization of these delimitations, and we've seen over 1,400 representations in terms of various concerns regarding the delimitations of constituencies. And I want to understand that while, of course, we've moved to the finalization, is it something that is within the normal domain of the number of representations that we have seen this year around, and whether or not there are still genuine concerns that remain, even though we've seen that the finalization is there, and what sort of aspects have been highlighted that still perhaps need our attention?
Right, Sana, this is precisely why I was actually looking forward to listening to FAFEN's representation in this program as well. I think while I was following all these, litigations or these representations or challenges, I don't think that this number is immense or huge.
Okay.
Every election you see similar kind of representations, and that continues because there are many people who actually believe that things should be the way they think those things should be, right? And regarding inclusion or exclusion of certain area in one constituency, that actually can technically or theoretically at least affect who wins or who loses, right? There are people who might be actually very popular in one township, and in the next one they might not be. So if you exclude that one township where they are not popular, that actually goes up. Chances of your winning becomes really, really high. So these are concerns that people will keep on raising, but the question is whether there is a mechanism to take care of all these queries, all these complaints or not. Because there is, so it is nothing to worry about. My basic concern right now is not that state of Pakistan hasn't committed to a date. It isn't that our judiciary hasn't committed to a date. They have actually said that all these things are going to take place now. So in my mind, there is no doubt that the elections are going to be held in time. The problem lies with the way your media and especially your punditry is structured. Everybody keeps on speculating and keep on pretending that they are being given some a priori knowledge. They are being informed by certain quarters and something different is going to happen. Till the time there is no evidence, why would I believe in such speculation, right? Let me remind everybody of one razor that is, called Sagan's constant, and that is extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, right? So far we haven't seen any evidence. I think that the Election Commission has actually fulfilled its obligation in given time, and now we already have a date of election as well. So we'll just have to wait and see what exactly becomes of it.
All right. We have been joined by a FAFEN representative, so we'll hear more from him as well. Mr. Salahudin Safdar, spokesperson FAFEN, has joined us online. Thank you very much for joining us and being part of the debate. And we were just trying to get some perspective into what has happened so far, particularly in terms of the finalization of the delimitations. And I want your perspective, given, of course, how a number of concerns have been raised and how there is also a lot of talk in terms of what sort of rule or legal action has been taken in terms of this finalization. And there's debate of whether or not the kind of delimitations and the procedure we've seen is in line with that of a district or a province. Can you help us explain and understand what sort of aspect is being discussed there and what really is the right way ahead, and whether or not that has been followed?
Thank you, Sana. First, I would like. Hello. First, I would like to the. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
we can.
go ahead.
We can. Please go ahead, sir.
I was saying that first we should take a moment to appreciate the completion of delimitation act without any major controversy, because in the past political parties process, but this time the process has been very smooth. Major political party or even political parties have raised any substantial issue with the. This is a good
Salahudin
step.
Safdar sir, there is some problem with your audio, sir. Perhaps the mic keeps on shifting. So can you fix that and then speak, sir?
Okay. Am I audible now?
It's
Yeah,
better.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was saying that it is important that we appreciate that there has been no major political controversy surrounding the delimitation this time. Unlike the past, when there were controversies around the delimitation, many parties raised concern about issues concerning the delimitation. But this time, there was no major or minor political party raising any substantial issue with the delimitation process. So that's a good sign, good omen for the election, that at least there is one aspect of the election that is completely free of any major controversy. Having said that, I would again like to draw the attention towards the principle of equality among the constituencies, as was highlighted by FAFEN numerous times previously as well, that the constituencies need to be equal in size. Currently, as was the case in 2022, as was the case in 2017, and as was the case previously, there are still constituencies of an assembly that vary more than 10% from their average population per seat of that assembly. For instance, the Bannu has a population of roughly 1.5 million, the constituency that comprises of the Bannu district. While on the other hand, a constituency comprising of Chitral has a population of half a million. So that's roughly three Bannu's population. The population of Bannu constituency is roughly 3 times more than the population of Chitral constituency. That gives people of Bannu 3 times less political power than the people of Chitral, who get to elect one member of National Assembly with only 0.5 million voters, 0.5 million population, while on the other hand, the people of Bannu get to elect one MNA with 1.5 million population. So that's a glaring difference between the size of population that election commission needs to see in any future delimitation. While I'll also like to add that these constituencies are likely to stay for a longer period, which was not the case with the delimitation conducted in 2017 or in 2022. Even the 22 delimitation were undone without holding any election on those delimitation. So this time, because these delimitations are conducted on a final census, so unless there is a new census in next decade or any time when Council of Common Interest decides to hold a fresh census, there will be the delimitations continue now will continue until those until that time. So
Right.
that's
Right. Salahudin Sahab, can you also comment on the number that we have seen in terms of the representations that were filed and the number of issues that were raised, whether or not it points to something that is concerning in terms of what we see coming in from different provinces? I understand you're saying that there is no major objection that was raised. What about the sheer number that we see? Is it okay?
What I was referring to, Sana, was the objections raised by any political party. What you are referring to is the representations made by the candidate. Obviously, when they are redrawing of the limits of a constituency, there are some concern of the parties, of the voter, of the candidates, or of the voters. But the political parties, which are the major stakeholder of an election process, have not been raising any objection. Certainly, there have been more than 1,000 representation filed with the election commission, and election commission has accepted many of those delimitation. Just some time ago, I was reviewing the delimitation. I saw that there were several changes from the initial list, the draft list, Form 5 of the constituencies, and the extent of the constituencies has been changed now in Form 7. That shows that the election commission has accepted a number of representation. However, how many representation have been accepted, that would be early for me to say, because we are still reviewing the data released by the election commission, and will come up with the number that how many representation were accepted after thoroughly reviewing these
Right,
final list,
Salahudin Sahab,
comparing it with the
I
previous.
wanted to actually, given that you have actually pointed to this discrepancy between the sizes of various constituencies, I'm sure that FAFEN has engaged with the Election Commission of Pakistan. What was the response you got? Because this is going to be something that is going to become an issue in coming days, right?
What discrepancy are you referring to, Farrukh Sahab?
You were just mentioning Bannu and other constituencies, their sizes.
The equality issue. The equality issue. The election commission thinks that they need to ensure the equality between constituencies of a district only, while the election law is very clear that the equality should be maintained between any two constituencies of an assembly. So I think the law, this is very conservative interpretation of law, that equality should be maintained only constituencies of our district, because law has been very clear. In fact, this law shows the parliamentary emphasis on the principle of equality among constituencies, because these delimitations that were conducted recently are not um, very significantly different from the delimitations conducted in 2002, because even then Banu has one constituency. Banu has one constituency in 2017, and the Banu has one constituency even now. So the number of constituencies of district has not significantly changed. Obviously, there are some changes, as was in the case of Karachi, which got an additional seat, and the Sangar lost its seat. But there have been no significant changes otherwise in the case where there have been glaring inequalities among the constituencies. This is despite the fact that the law has evolved very much since 2002. The parliament first emphasized on the equality principle when it consolidated the election laws into one law and came up with the Elections Act. It emphasized that the variation among population should be reduced to maximum 10%. Then again in 2023, when the outgoing parliament passed an amendment to the Elections Act, it again emphasized that it would not be necessary to regard the boundaries of a district when when limiting the population variance to 10%. So it gave an added emphasis to the equality principle. But despite that parliamentary emphasis, we have seen that the Election Commission continued to doing the delimitation with the previous rule, with the older rules, and it did not update its election rules 2017 that the Election Commission makes. So these rules are subservient to these rules are made under the authority given by the law. So if law is saying that the delimitations, the constituencies of an assembly should not vary more than 10%. So the law should be given precedence, and not the rules should be given precedence over the law. So that's our
Right,
take on
absolutely.
the issue of
Yes,
discrepancy.
Faisal.
Yeah, Dr. Niaz, as you're someone who always keeps an eye on elections as well, especially Punjab's election. And in this coming election, of course, Punjab is going to be pivotal when it comes to obviously, the political parties. They are, all of the political parties, they are trying to gain stakes in Punjab, being the largest province in terms of population. And if we look at, the delimitations, always we get to see, I hail from Punjab and I always get to see that, there were certain union councils that used to be part of that constituency. Now they are part of the other constituency. So do you think that in coming days we might see few of the political parties, maintaining hue and cry about it? And if a political party would come forward, which one would it be? Do you think that it would be PTI or People's Party or maybe PMLN?
Dr. Niaz.
Dr. Niaz?
Oh, sorry, this is for me. Well, it's difficult to say, how much difference delimitation has made to different parties' fortunes. With Sindh, it's very clear that, 3 seats have moved from rural Sindh to Karachi. And one of them has moved to Malir, which is still Sindh's PPP stronghold. So we can say the other two, seats at the provincial level have moved to, central and east. So those 2 seats, PPP will likely lose to one of, the urban Sindh parties like, MQM or PTI or JI or TLP. But even that, the Sindh Assembly is what, about 130, 140 seats. So it's still a minor change. Now with Punjab, I know, some seats have moved from, one district to another, but then, the politics of Punjab is much more fluid. It's not divided in terms of, ethnicity the way Sindh is divided. So at this stage, it will be difficult to say, how they are going to, affect the fortunes of different parties. And I think again, even there, Mr. Safdar may know more about the exact numbers changed, but I don't think it's a huge number of seats. So that is not going to be the determining factor of what's going to happen in Punjab. The determining factors are, of course, the extent to which PTI will be given a free hand to be able to campaign, to run the kind of candidates that it wants to run, and those candidates will be allowed by the powers that be to go for a PTI ticket. So those are the kind of things that are going to be really determinant. But this delimitation, there's not huge changes, so I don't think that's going to swing things for any party. In Punjab, it will come down to, I think PMLN and PTI, and to some extent, the Istehkam party. I think these are going to be the three bigger parties. The other ones, like Q League or even PPP, don't have much of, hold there. The surprise card could be TLP. It's sort of, lying low, but, it could spring a surprise. Some indications are there that it's preparing itself to participate in a big way. So
Yeah.
how that affects is got to be seen, but I don't see limitations as having a huge change.
Right, and then Faisal, I'm sure you have your own perspective regarding the same question, so let's swing it back to you. What do you think about the situation?
Well, I personally believe at very last Dr. Niaz mentioned about TLP, and I keep on thinking about TLP. Why I say this? Because many of their candidates, they happen to be coming from a peer circle. They are spiritual leaders, and of course they have their influence in rural Punjab, and they are pivotal when it comes to elections. And that is why we have been seeing that even in the previous election, I mean in 2018, in different constituencies, they have been grabbing on around 15 to 20,000 votes, and that vote it creates a huge difference when it comes to which candidate is going to win. So last time around in 2018, when they have been taking 18,000, 19,000 votes in all of the constituencies, there were few constituencies, I mean in my constituency they took 32,000 votes, and that was key to obviously dent the uprunner, the person who was being considered as he's going to win. He did not win just because of that vote. So that's what I'm trying to say. I mean, it would be quite interesting to see what kind of impact TLP is bringing in this elections. And of course, I mean, I know there are a few of the constituencies around my district. They always complain about, oh, there were seven or eight union councils that were part of the other constituency. Now they are being dropped in this constituency, and of course the whole spectrum of the election, it changes just because of that. So I am seeing the election with the eyes that it is going to be extremely interesting to see how the things move on. And I have
white shut.
Yeah, I have my eyes on TLP, what kind of dent it actually can bring to PMLN or PTI. So that is how they can affect the elections.
Right, Farrukh, you had a question?
Yeah, Dr. Niaz, earlier when you were talking about, and thank you very much for actually qualifying how this redistricting and constituency politics can affect politics in Karachi or Sindh for that matter. Why is it then that political parties haven't actually raised their voices so far? Is it because of the subdued environment that we are in, or is it because these political parties still see some hope? Particularly, you mentioned People's Party potentially losing a seat. So why is it that they haven't actually verbalized these concerns?
Well, Farooq, I mean, I know you are a very keen follower of US politics, and you know what the impact of gerrymandering there is. and how both parties utilize that to maximize their seats. But there the things are different. There's more stable voting patterns there, whereas here in Punjab especially, it's much more fluid. Things can swing from one party to another just based on the fact that one electable has moved to from one party to another. So my sense is that those kind of gerrymandering impacts that you see in the U.S. politics don't really matter that much in Pakistan because of the fluidity of on voting, especially in Punjab. And Faisal followed up on my point about TLP, and I would say that if PTI is not allowed to campaign freely, then it's quite possible that a big chunk of the PTI vote might go to TLP vote, because in many ways both parties are similar. Populist leader at the top, and the piri fakiri religious politics influence, and it might be youngsters in the urban areas who don't want to vote on the basis of dhardas and electables and all, and they are looking for new kind of politics. So it's quite possible that if PTI is suppressed, the PTI vote is suppressed, it may swing to TLP. So let's see. But overall, yes, the parties are not complaining too much on delimitations going against each other. The clearest example that I can see is, PPP losing 2 seats, but as I said, 2 seats out of 100, is not a big deal. So they haven't really complained that much, and then they are making inroads into Karachi. So I don't think delimitation itself is going to be a huge factor in that sense.
Right, Salahudin Sab, when we talk about the necessary arrangements that are in place, the ECP also has stressed upon the fact that everything is in place, and of course that we are moving towards election